Wow, hi everyone. Thank you so much for coming out. For those of you who don't know me, I am Ted Nelson. I play this thing, and I do some artistic stuff for Concert Nova. So, as you know, Concert Nova has an artistic team who have made music basically the focus of our lives. And sharing that music with you brings us tremendous joy. So, developing this new series, Music and Medicine, is giving Concert Nova the chance to explore the intersection between music, the brain, and wellness. Tonight's performance, the first in that series, is the first step on that journey. So we've tried to bring together a team of musicians, researchers, radiologists, and neuroscientists to better understand the impact of music on the mind and body. Because music is universal. The categories that are used to divide humans are transcended by music. It's listened to in order to bring on emotional response, but that's only the beginning when it comes to what music is capable of. It can be used to heal, it can be used to build, it can literally change the structure of our brains. This understanding is Music and Medicine's point of departure into this exciting new series. Essentially, the brain enables everything we do. It allows us to think, create, breathe, live, feel, and there is a wondrous connection between the physical nature of neurons firing and the fleeting nature of sound. I mean, neurons fire and then they stop, and our music is you hear it and then it's gone. Brain imaging technology has only begun to scratch the surface of understanding this intersection between music and the brain. We hope that this fascinating area of exploration will yield insight on music as therapy, as communication, and as a unifying force in the human experience. So there's a long list of people to thank because, as you will see, this was a fairly complicated concert to put together. So first of all, a big thank you to Dr. John Tu, who made introductions for us to the University of Cincinnati Department of Radiology, and to both Dr. and Mrs. Tu as concert sponsors. Dr. Lily Wong, yes. Dr. Lily Wong, who facilitated the MRI procedures. Thank you so much for that. Dr. Todd Florin, whose vision paved our line of questioning, and to Kemper Florin and, my name's there, and Ted Nelson, who so patiently endured the fMRIs from which our concert images are gathered. Yeah. We'd also like to thank our season sponsors, Duck and the late Sally Wadsworth, Dee and Tom Stegman, and Harry and Ann Santon. We also would like to thank ArtsWave and the Cincinnati International Wine Festival for their continued support. And of course, a special thank you to Aimee Longray and Paula Ash for all of their tireless help and their culinary skills that have helped to bring brain food to this performance. Again, thank you all for coming, and I hope you enjoy the performance.
We are so glad that you are all here. I'm Dr. Todd Florin. I'm an associate professor of pediatrics at the University of Cincinnati College of Medicine. I'm an attending physician in the pediatric emergency department at Cincinnati Children's, and I'm also a musician. And that connection between music and medicine has been almost a lifelong passion for me since I started my professional career in medicine, and continue to have a small semi-professional career in music. So that's actually been a great duality for me. I will let Lily introduce herself, and then we will get started with the festivities. I will tell you, this will be different than a typical Concert Nova concert that you've been at. There won't be a lot of complete pieces. This is really going to feel almost like a lecture recital. There's going to be interaction, there's going to be some science, there's going to be some music, and we hope that at the end of the night, that you will walk away asking more questions than you have when you came in. That is our goal. So if we have stimulated that thought process within you, we know that we've done our job. So I'll let Lily introduce, and then we'll get started.
Hi, my name is Lily Wang. I'm a radiologist at University of Cincinnati. I also teach medical students, and that's why I thought, well, we will make you work during this concert. I'm very mean, aren't I? All right, so I know some people may have problems logging in. I play the piano, I sing, and used to play the violin, so that's my music connection. So when Dr. Tu connected me with Mixie, Ted, Todd, and Kemper, I was so excited. So let's start. Okay. Now, so most people have answered the first question, and it's a little. Now, can you look on your phone right now? So right now, I'm going to give you a quiz, and it's timed. Okay. So are we ready? So for those of you who don't have a phone, you can do this in your head and see if you're doing any. All right. Here we go. Oh. Okay. Can everyone see the question? No calculators. I am going to count down. I'm going to give you 20 seconds. That's the timer there. I don't know. Some people answered. They're all getting it right, so that's good. Oh, the web link is great.
Let's have them answer this question.
Well,
first.
we'll finish this question and then we'll go back, okay? 30 seconds up. Well, the next one is also timed, so. Well, I will be more lenient since we need to give you the web link, right? So everyone should get that right. Okay, so the link is here. It's https://go.rsna.org/concertnova. No space or small letters. So I can see 35 people have answered, and 50% of people got it correct. Uh-oh.
This is a music concert, not a.
Do we have any math teachers down there? Does anyone want to give a math class after this? Oh, can you try to refresh? Does it work? All right, well, I'm going to do it myself. Okay. All right, that's enough for this one. We're going to give you the next question. Sorry, you can just work. You can work with your neighbor. if you don't have a phone, group work is allowed. All right. Okay, next question. All right. I feel like I'm in elementary school again. So, how many heads and how many feet? So, how many horses and how many men? So, no one has answered this question yet. 20 seconds have lapsed. Look, I gave these questions to my mom. She's in her mid-60s. She got them like straight away.
No pressure.
Yep, no pressure. I used her to gauge this. Okay, good. 4 people have answered and they all got it right. So, keep going.
Yep.
How about the rest of you? Come on.
Cut it in a minute.
Okay. 5, 4, 3. There's no negative marking, so if you just want to guess, that's also fine. 3, 2, 1. All right. Next question. I think it tells you whether you got it right or not. So 54% of people got it right.
What was the answer? Tell them the answer.
Oh, sorry, after this question. This is also timed. So, all right. The day before 2 days after the day before tomorrow is Saturday. What day is today? We'll go through the answers after this question. I'm sorry, you probably didn't think you had to think coming to the concert, but yeah. So only 5 people have answered. Oh, I'm sorry. Now you can see this is kind of tough. It's okay, even if you guessed, you have a 1 in 7 chance of getting right. I tell my residents if it's like you're stuck, it's 50-50, just guess.
You are radiologists.
Flip a coin. No, I'm just kidding. In the exam, not in real life. Okay. All right. Now, okay, so we're going to go through the answers. I mean, really? Okay. You are all dying to know. This one you can use the calculator, right? So I don't need to go through that. Now, so the answer is one of these, right? When it's repeated like twice, you see those numbers, it's kind of like going to be the correct answer. If you're going to narrow it down quickly. So quickly, 8 times 2 plus 14 times 4, okay, it works, all right, 72. They all add up to 22, by the way, so that was my design. Okay, so the answer is 8 men and 14 horses. All right, so this one is kind of logical. So what I did was I actually drew, like I wrote down all the days, and then I was like drawing boxes by going backwards and forwards, and the answer is Friday. All right, so how do you feel now? You can type your answer. Let's see. Well, sorry, there you go. Stupid. Oops. I did not want to offend our concert goers. Now, so you can just enter your answer. How do you feel? Select from one of those. So you feel hurt? You feel stressed? That was my intention. Anxious? No. You feel peaceful or relieved? Annoyed? Please don't select annoyed. I will get fired. Hopefully none of you is bored. Okay. Right, so we can see on your phone. I'm sorry, so those of you who don't have a phone, you know, I am having technical interesting things. I want to show that thing. I want to show you how that shows on the what everyone selected. So give me 1 second. Can you entertain them while I do this? Please?
Is that that's my role
Yeah,
in this?
please. Can you
You're doing,
sing something?
let's see. There you go.
I will use my phone. We crashed the internet here. Oops. All right. So hopefully, please work. All right. Doesn't want to. Okay, it's
There we go.
loading up. All right. Launch projector. Does it work? Okay, it's going to start
Is it
from
gonna
the
start from the beginning, though?
Yeah, it may. All right. Let's see if that'll work.
There we go.
All right. Right. During my time of work, I'm a technical support. All right. So most of you are mute, so that's great. Now we can go into what are we doing? Playing. Okay. So this is.
Great.
Don't go back to the.
So I think with that little introduction, that little quiz, we're going to talk a little bit about the Mozart effect after you listen to a little bit of Mozart. So now that you've felt all of those emotions, we're going to have our brilliant musicians play a movement from the Mozart Clarinet Quintet, and we'll see how you feel afterwards.
You can put away your phones. Does it work? No, it doesn't. Oh, I will skip that. I'm going to give you another test. I'm sorry that one didn't work, but I'm sure you feel much more relaxed. But I'm going to stress you now again. All right, this time I really am going to give you. Ooh. Oh yeah, good. All right, so it's not showing up. Why is it not? Well, it's showing up on your phone. I know. Okay, that's fine because that thing is still playing. Now you can see how everyone's doing. We've got 63 people, 14 people have answered. I am only going to give you 10 more seconds because we've got the rest of the concert to go. Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, so 81% who answered got it right. And all right, more. Now this one I'm going to give you 20 seconds, okay? Maybe not, 20 seconds, no one's answered. Okay, 6 people, excellent. Oh, okay, some people got it wrong, okay? The yellow is people who haven't answered the question, the red is like people who got it wrong, the green is people who got it right. Okay, all right, that's fine. Okay, so there are 2 ducks in front of a duck, 2 ducks behind a duck, and a duck in the middle. How many ducks are there? Actually, a little kid answered this correctly, so, huh? He's 10, yeah, okay, a 10-year-old kid told his parents he got it right. All right, good. That's all we're gonna do, and let's see. Well, okay, whoops. Now, did you do better? Okay, maybe not. Did you really do better?
I don't know.
Oh, I don't know.
I think that this is consistent with what the studies show about the Mozart effect. So let's talk about that. So several years back, there was a study that claimed that listening to Mozart for 10 minutes a day made you smarter. And the study claimed that after listening to Mozart for 10 minutes a day, the study spatial reasoning improved on spatial reasoning tests. And the world went crazy. And in Georgia, the governor said, we're setting funding aside for every newborn Georgian baby to get a CD with Mozart on it, because it's going to make Georgians smarter. And so resolutions were passed, funds were appropriated. Many scientists and musicians were actually upset by this, because what the Mozart effect somehow implies is that music shouldn't be studied for its own right, but it should be used to help with more important things like math and IQ, which is unfortunate. What would happen if we claimed that studying math would make people better musicians? Would the governor of Georgia buy everyone's slide rules? I don't know if it would work the other way around. Anyway, that original study had several major flaws. The problem was mainly with the control group and the choice of a control task. Of course, if you're listening to music versus doing nothing, which was one of the original control groups, the group listening to music did slightly better on the spatial reasoning tests. If the control group was doing anything else that required any modicum of thought, listening to a book on tape, doing a puzzle, playing with Legos, there was no difference between the 2 groups. So the Mozart effect initially referred to immediate benefits, but other research has revealed long-term benefits. So musical listening actually has been shown to enhance and change certain neural circuits, and we call this plasticity of the brain, or neuroplasticity. And studies have found that there were increased density of neural connections in the primary auditory cortex, the place where our brain processes what we hear, in addition to larger fibers in the area that connects the 2 hemispheres of the brain, called the corpus callosum. These fibers were significantly larger in musicians than in non-musicians. So other studies have found that the cerebellum, which is typically involved in movement and coordination, but is also involved in our emotional responses to music, it lives in the back here, is larger in musicians. And there's a growing body of literature that suggests that long-term music lessons in children have a positive effect with IQ and academic performance. However, this effect is small. And as an epidemiologist, I'd be remiss if I didn't point out that correlation between one thing and another does not mean that one thing causes another. Causation is much harder to prove than correlation or association. And so the initial thought was you listen to Mozart, it activates neural pathways, and that improves your spatial abilities. And further research tried to actually tease this apart a little bit. What is it about listening to music that supposedly improves our spatial reasoning? So what they found actually was that it was really 2 things. It was tempo and it was mode or key. And the thought was that tempo leads to increased brain arousal, increased enjoyment, that key leads to increased enjoyment and better mood depending on major versus minor, and that in turn this concept of arousal, enjoyment, and mood is what made people do better on cognitive tests. So if you look at this bar graph, there won't be many of these, but we have to include a little bit of science. So the score, the sort of spatial reasoning score, is on the vertical axis. These were made after listening to a piece in a major key, and this was after listening to a piece in a minor key. The dotted bars are fast tempo, and the white bars, the clear bars, are slow tempo. So what you can see is fast tempo tends to win out when it comes to spatial reasoning. If you listen to fast music for 10 minutes, you did better than if you listened to slow music. Similarly, if you listen to music in the major keys, the so-called happy keys, you are more likely to have better spatial reasoning than if you listened in the minor keys, the so-called sad keys. And so this was shown in terms of arousal and in terms of mood. Same thing. Fast had increased arousal, slow had decreased arousal. Major key had increased mood, minor key had decreased mood. So it's really about how music in terms of tempo and mood leads us to enjoy what we're listening to, arouses our brain, and ultimately makes us think. So I think, how do we summarize this? It's likely that we probably should encourage music in our lives and the lives of our children for music's sake, because music is a wonderful thing that enhances our souls. Not because it's going to make us better at arithmetic or spatial reasoning. There may be some long-term benefit to that, but really, I think that the bottom line is that the Mozart effect likely does not truly exist, and it's rather about listening to the types of music that we like as human beings and enjoying the human experience that music brings.
So do you think listening to music help you perform work? Just show of hands. That's the majority. Well, I guess that's why you're all here, right? All right, so how about music and physicians? Isn't that interesting? 90% of surgeons, this was done in the UK, so they were listening to music in theater. Okay, so theater is their operating theater, operating room. So music, they feel, make them less stressful. They calm the surgeons down so they don't get too upset. And people feel like they work more efficiently. However, this minority group feel like music can actually be distracting. All right, so there's a study done that Mozart actually helps. Any GI surgeons? Any gastroenterologists here? Probably not. Anyway, so they found that Mozart may improve polyp detection. So it is interesting. So look, they only had two gastroenterologists to do scopes. So doctor number one had no music. His detection rate was only 21%. That sounds pretty bad, right? Shh, we don't know who they are. Okay, so when they listened to Mozart, it improved almost 3 times. So doctor number 2 did not do that well, but he did better without music, but he had only a mild improvement. Now, this was only 2 people, so really, you can take away what you like. So they also look like plastic surgeons and see if they do better with music. They got plastic surgery resident to suture up pig trotters and then see how good they do and how fast they do. And this was they were playing music on Pandora. Okay, so sorry, more bar graphs. Blue is no music, and yellow is with music. You can see the lower residents are slower, of course, right? They are still learning. These are the upper residents. They do much better, and you can tell that you can actually see a significant difference. That's what stars are in science. When you see a little star, that means there's a statistically significant difference between the 2 groups. So when they listen to music, they did much better. All right, and the quality of repair is also a little better. These were graded on a scale of 1 to 5. Now, people thought introverts radiology nerds, me, okay, find music and noise much more distracting than extroverts, e.g. surgeons. But, this is just generalization. That's what people generally say. And you probably don't want to have music if a new doctor who's trying to learn a new procedure. So we should ban first-year residents to have any music because they actually do much worse when they listen to music. You can see their performance goes down with music because they cannot multitask. So, there we go. Radiologists and music, that's relevant. We've got a few radiologists in the audience. So they looked at 8 radiologists. They felt it helped with their mood and they felt happier. But did they really help them with the diagnosis? It's really hard to prove. Okay, so this was N of 1. This radiologist has a blog, and he posted this on his blog. He actually did some summaries on these studies, and I thought it was really interesting. He was reading a ton of x-rays. So this first bar you probably can't see. This is when he was listening to some Western pop music. And this one is, this is the time it takes for him to read the studies. So the shorter the bar, the better. So this is white noise. I think he got one of those white noise machines. And this is Metallica, the middle one, okay? This is Bach. Okay, this is Bach 2. The reason he had Bach twice was he was surprised by the difference and he thought that was a fluke. So he repeated again with the same Bach piece and it helped him. So, yeah, there you go. Listen to Bach in the reading room. So what is the verdict? Well, should we have music or not? Should we listen to Mozart or Madonna? I guess it's a personal choice and it's really hard to prove this scientifically. That's the bottom line. All right, so we're going to look at the musician's brain in part 2. Now, I'm going to try to multitask, which actually stresses me out a little. Okay, there we go with this thing. It went away, okay, that's fine. Click. Click, 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 click. Click, click, click. Let's, so. All right, get your phone out. Which side of the brain is music in most people? Okay, it works. Again, 50-50 here if you've never thought about this question. Okay. All right, so, sorry if you were a little slow. So 60% of you got it correct, and the answer is the right side. Of course, there are exceptions, but the majority of people have music on their right. Now, this one, this is a touch question, which means you put your finger on where you think the structure is, and then make sure you center it properly. So if you think it's like here, then click on there, and then make sure you hit the green button, submit on your phone. I don't know, it's a tough question, right? Oh, whoops, okay. Lots of people got it wrong. It's okay. That's how you learn. Now you will know, you will remember because you got it wrong. Okay, well, pretty tough question. All right, that's okay. So we are all over the place. Oh, it's okay. Doctors can laugh at this. It's fine. So this is a temporal lobe, and that's the top part of the temporal lobe is responsible. It's what we call primary auditory cortex. So this is a cerebellum, and that's the frontal lobe. All right. So enough medicine. I've got this one. Can you identify the tongue? Come on, this one should be easy, right? Oops, that shouldn't be there. We should be. This is my fault. It's okay. We'll run that in the background. All right, we are here. There. Okay, so with this project, we actually put TED here in the MRI scanner. Some of you may have been in one. It's really, really noisy. It's a big magnet. I won't go into the science of that, but what we look at is we can look at areas of the brain that takes up more oxygen because of use. And this effect is really small, but we can actually measure it, and it's called the Bode effect. So this is what we measure. So we give them a task, and then we also give them a break. It's what we call control. And we repeat this several times. Then we do statistical analysis to see which part of the brain is activated when they actually do a task. Okay, so this is not Ted's brain. This is what we usually do functional MRI. I had to put that thing up there just in case Ted's like freaking out. Why is there a tumor? Okay, so this is an example of what we use functional MRI for. So we can actually do beautiful tracks to show the relationship between the tumor and the tracks. So then the surgeon will know how close he might get to the track and cause impairment. Now, if you look at the image, that we're going to show you a clip, and then this is the right side because we are facing the patient. It's kind of like the feet point towards you and the head is away from you. So this is the right side of Ted, and that's the left. This is Ted's brain, by the way. Okay, so no tumor. The green is not tumor. Okay, so left side is that side. All right, so we are going to get ready to do this. And okay, I can start whenever? Okay. Sorry, I have to restart. It's not. Okay, good. Okay, so the clip you show, we showed you, well, we couldn't move the actual MRI machine here and put Ted there and then make him play the cello in the scanner. So that was the next best thing we could do, is to record it. So now, that was him playing Bach. And this was actually him imagine playing Bach. So the thing about MRI scanners is a big magnet. So you cannot bring anything with metallic in it, okay, and not your phone. So we couldn't get the cello in there. There was kind of a little confined there. Maybe a piccolo. No, it's metal. So anyway, so this was him imagining playing Bach in the scanner. And this is his primary auditory cortex. They were lighting up when he was in the scanner, listening and imagining him was playing. Now, this is when he was actually playing the Bach. So what I asked him to do was, can you listen to the music and actually move your hands, although you don't have a cello? And so we get a lot more activation here. So this is This area is responsible for planning motor function, and these areas are his motor cortex, and then they are lighting up, as well as his auditory cortex light up like before. So if we overlap the two, you can actually see there's a difference between actual playing and just imagine playing. All right, I won't get too technical here, but that's where his hands are, and that's where you got it wrong before. Okay, sorry. This is the primary auditory cortex here. This image is flipped compared to before. Now, we also thought it would be interesting. So Ted, are you right-handed or left-handed? Okay, so for most right-handed people, like I asked you before, most right-handed people have language on their left side and music on their right side. And to prove that, I got Ted to listen to a story. So the orange is the story. You can see, so this is his left brain, and this is his right brain. The yellow is more on the right. I know it's bilateral, but it's more on the right. And the language is mostly on the left. So we proved that Ted has what we call typical language lateralization. All right, I'm not going to go into the jargons there because you are not medical students. Okay. Like Todd mentioned before, the musician's brain have certain areas that are more well-developed compared to non-musician's brain, but I won't go into that. Now, we are going to go into chapter 3. All ready? All right. So, now this is the question we had before. Wow. Oh, excellent. Most of you got it correct. I'll just give you 2 more seconds since we had so much time before. Okay, good. All right, so that's the time. Oh, this is what we call the brain. I think someone just slipped their finger. That's okay. All right. So where's the soft palate? You probably see it better on your phone than the screen here. The projector doesn't project it very well, but if you have a phone, try that. Where's the soft palate? Okay, give you a few more seconds. Ah, seems like a tough question. I'm curious to see where people put their marker. Please do not put it in the brain. This is the brain. This is the brain. At least we'll get it's outside of this area. All right. Oh, well, most of them, just one person put it in the brain, but yeah, they were kind of close. This is actually a nose. This is a nasal turbinate. I think lots of people pick the nasal turbinate. And the front part is the hard palate. This yellow part is the soft palate. All right, the reason we're doing this is, I have to get this out of the way. All right, we're just talking about how you make sound, and here we are. So it's kind of like a system. You have a power source, and you have a vibrator, and through this power source that pushes air through the vibrator, you go through the areas that resonate the sound so that it can project better. Okay, and this is just another picture showing you the air goes through the vocal cords, and then it comes out. And then your tongue and your soft palate and your whole oral cavity shapes what sort of sound you make. And that's a picture of what happens to your vocal cord when you actually talks and when you move them around. I'm not an expert in this area, so I won't go into that. Okay, so this is what you're going to see. I thought I'm just going to orientate against, but we see this is the tongue, okay? This is the hard palate, and that's the soft palate there. That's the spinal cord here. So this is Kemper's picture, and I just oriented you, so now you know what you're looking at. It's a little grainy because we were actually shooting a movie, what we call cine images, and that's why the resolution is not as good. Okay. So, yeah. So let's welcome.
So as we get set up, what we actually did was we had Kemper in the scanner, and she was hearing music and actually physically singing what you are about to hear while she was in the MRI. And the MRI cut is straight down the middle, but looking sideways. So you're actually going to, as we do this, it might not be coordinated exactly. The timing is a little rough, but it's going to be pretty close. You are actually going to be seeing what is happening inside of Kemper while she's singing this music, because this was her in the scanner singing this exact same music. So let's see if this all works, and we will start with the Schubert Romance. Okay, ready? Maybe. There we go.
Okay, good.
It's going.
It's fine. It's playing.
Should we try and coordinate again? Let's do it again. Yep. Okay. Yeah, scroll back. You ready? Okay. And So that was on the slower side. And despite the fact that we weren't quite coordinated, what you could see is that when Kemper was sustaining a note, the tongue went down and the soft palate went up. So she was creating space, and you could see that anatomically. The next song that we're going to do, another Schubert lied, Heidenröslein, is faster. And so here you may see less space in the tongue and the soft palate, but you may see that the tongue is going to be going a little bit faster, since the tongue is our articulator when we sing and when we talk. So are we ready to, okay. Right, so there's a click first, right? And then, okay. Yeah, just keep an eye out. Okay, we'll try and coordinate. We'll do this. This is what happened when the married couple just sort of, okay. So in that piece, you saw a lot of jutting of the tongue, almost like a frog against the tip of the teeth, which was able to create that faster, more playful sound. For the next piece, which is by Luciano Berio, I'll have Kemper introduce this a little bit. Here.
So this next piece, we do not have an fMRI. Oh, actually, we do have a little bit. Lily's going to play it. It's just a little bit of a small excerpt, and it will not line up because this piece, composed by Berio, was written in 1965, I believe, and 66. And he was really interested in exploring what almost everyday vocal sounds could sound like just with a solo singer and nothing else. So unlike the Schubert pieces which you heard, which are lots of extended harmonic lines, legato singing, this is very, very clipped, almost percussive. Now, this piece, I'm just going to perform about a minute excerpt for you because it's really about 8 minutes long. So much to your pleasure or displeasure, I will only be doing 1 minute of it. In it, you're going to hear lots of, like I said, everyday things, muttering, sighing, clicking, things along those lines. So it's something completely different from what you just heard. Did you guys have the score or anything?
I can show them the score. Yeah.
I can show the score afterwards.
Okay. We'll just
Yeah, just sing. Oh, sing first or sing?
Cine with singing.
Sing then with singing. That's not going to be timed. Okay, that's fine. All right.
Sing to me, sing to me, sing to me. And that's all I'll say.
So a completely different experience, not only for the audience, but also for the performer, where suddenly you're called on to make all these interesting sounds. So this is actually a copy of the score. He has a really detailed key on what you're supposed to do with various symbols. Each symbol represents different effects. Covered. There's one where you put the hand over the to give it that, and you flap your hand over. It's really detailed and specific, yet free at the same time. Each section is approximately 10 seconds. The pitches are relative, so it's just a really interesting challenge for the singer. It's a dramatic essay where basically the story is between the performer and her voice. So. Enjoy. I hope you enjoyed it.
Do it again.
So, we've talked about the musician's brain. We've talked about the singer's anatomy. Now we're going to talk about the composer's brain. So, manic depressive or bipolar illness encompasses a wide range of mood disorders and temperaments. Severity can vary from something called cyclothymia, where there is pronounced but not totally debilitating changes in mood, behavior, thinking, sleep, energy, to extremely life-threatening and psychotic forms of the disease. The depressive phase typically includes things like apathy, lethargy, hopelessness, suicidal thinking, and self-blame. The manic phase includes things like elevated, expansive moods, less need for sleep, greatly increased activity and energy levels, rapid speech, rapid thinking, pressured speech. So many composers, and artists for that matter, including Berlioz, Bruckner, Elgar, Handel, Ives, Mahler, Tchaikovsky, to name just a few, suffered from either major depression or manic depressive illness. Perhaps Robert Schumann is the most well-known case of manic depressive illness in a composer. Schumann was the youngest of 5 children. He was born in 1810. His father was a writer and reportedly had a nervous breakdown the year that Robert was born and never recovered. His mother had recurrent attacks of depression. He showed signs of manic depressive illness starting at about 18 years of age. He had broad strokes of episodic depression and mania from 18 years of age up until the time that he died in an insane asylum at the age of 46. Now, what's so interesting about Schumann is that there's a clear relationship between his episodes of mania and his artistic output. As you can see, this is Schumann's work, number of compositions by year, in association with when he was having hypomanic versus severe depressive episodes. And what you can see is it's remarkable how from 1833 to 1839, he was in a severe depressed phase. In 1840, he was hypomanic. And and his compositional output skyrocketed. He became depressed again throughout 1844, and then hypomanic through 1849, and again skyrocketed. He had a suicide attempt in 1854, and then died from self-starvation in an insane asylum in 1856. So in the 1830s, Schumann actually introduced into his public writings two characters that represented the conflicting but complementary sides of this stormy personality. So the first he named Florestan. Florestan was impulsive. He was wildly energetic. He was impassioned, decisive, masculine, high-spirited, iconoclastic. The other personality he named Eusebius. Eusebius was gentler, melancholic, pious, introspective. And Schumann actually depicted these two personalities in his musical output. The piece that we're going to hear is his Opus 9 for solo piano called Carnival. Within this piece, it is a series of 22 short pieces that are connected by a recurring motif. And it's a musical representation of an elaborate masked ball. We could do a whole hour and a half analyzing just this one piece. He takes 4 notes and he expands on those 4 notes in a way that's a puzzle for the audience to figure out. But what we're going to focus on tonight are 2 of those movements. One of these movements represents Eusebius and the other Florestan. So things to listen for in this. Eusebius is the first movement. You'll listen to it, you'll hear gentle, flowing, almost uncomfortably never-ending musical lines. And you can envision this sort of gentle, introverted, but not quite right personality, because the music is gentle, but it doesn't really seem to end. It's these long, uncomfortably long, gentle lines. And then, this is followed by Florestan, the complete opposite. Fiery, ascending lines. They're abrupt. They're sometimes awkward. They alternate with brief periods of calm, only to be swept into these abrupt shifts of energetic, spirited dancing that started the movement. So with that, I will welcome Brianna out onto the stage, and we'll start with Eusebius and follow that by Florestan. So there are so many pieces like that that actually show that a composer uses to express the myriad of emotions that are existing within their being, within their psyche. While the Schumann was an example of musical pieces that were an expression of the composer's own emotions and a reflection of his own mental illness, many composers also set poetry to music that strongly associates with mental illness. In his song cycle, Ariel, 5 poems of Sylvia Plath, contemporary American composer Ned Rorem sets music to 5 of Plath's poems. So Plath was known to have major depressive disorder and tried several times to take her life, and at the age of 30, died tragically of carbon monoxide poisoning from leaving her head in the oven with the gas on. And so tonight, we present Rorem settings, Ned Rorem settings of 2 of Sylvia Plath's poems, Poppies in July and Poppies in October. We will display the text as our musicians perform, and as you listen, try to focus on the association between the meaning of the text and the musical sounds. For example, in Poppies in July, which is the first movement that you're going to hear Kemper singing frequent, repeated notes that don't change. And every so often they change a half step up or a half step down to sort of make you feel a little bit uneasy. And while she is maintained on that C, the clarinet and the piano are changing harmonically underneath her, which sort of creates this disjunct sort of mood evoking the emotion of the poem which is largely about sadness, depression, and death. So please enjoy these 2 movements from Ariel by Ned Rorem. What's that? That's the vocal text. Yeah, I'll change it.
Little poppies, little half
So as we move on to the last part of the evening, I'm going to ask our string quartet to join us on stage. And this is about your brains. And so this is about emotion and music. So music appreciation is tied to our ability to learn the underlying structure of the music we like and to make predictions about what comes next in the music. Emotion is created in music when composers know what our expectations are and then control when these expectations are met and when they are not. The most basic form of this in music is the deceptive cadence. Our ears in Western music get used to hearing a cadence or the end of music happening with a dominant chord followed by a tonic chord or the home chord, 5-1, bum, bum. That is what we're used to hearing. And what composers started to do in the classical era was to, instead of going to 1, go to another chord. Most typically it was the 6th note of the scale, which fooled our ears into thinking that we were going to end, but no, we're not going to end. We're going to move someplace else. And this setting up and manipulating of expectations is the heart of music. These expectations can be set in many different ways: melody, harmony, orchestration, texture, timbre, rhythm, form. So in Beethoven's later years, he became a master of manipulating expectations in all of these ways. His late quartets are a masterclass in turning musical expectation on its head, toying with our emotions and expectations in just about every possible way. So the next piece that you will hear is the first movement from his Opus 127, which is the first of his later quartets, and emphasizes his manipulation of form, harmony, and structure. So again, we can spend an hour and a half analyzing this piece of music, but I'm going to focus for us on just the first 6 measures. He starts this quartet with 6 measures that sound totally rhythmically ambiguous. As you listen to just these 6 measures, we're not going to play the whole piece, I want you to think, where is the downbeat? What's the tempo? Think about what you expect, what you want to hear. Where is the harmony going? And then after these 6 measures, we'll talk a little bit more and then let our quartet play the rest of the movement. So, we have these long expansive chords. What meter are we in? Can we tell? No. And so let's look at the score. So if we look at the score, what you just heard was the top first 6 measures. And so we're in 2-4. And if you just looked at the score, you can say, okay, I can sing this. Bum, bum, ba, ba, bum, 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 ba, bum, bum. Not quite what we heard. Because what he does is he uses articulation, like sforzandi on offbeats, so a little bit of syncopation, and a small little staccato articulation on that 8th note to create a stop. And so it makes us feel a little bit jerked in different directions. It's this big, expansive thing, but we don't quite know where we are. In addition to this, he challenges the conventions of the sonata form during this first movement. So sonata form is one of the hallmark musical structures that began to show dominance in the classical period. It has 3 major sections. The exposition, typically composed of 2 major melodic themes. The first theme, usually in a major key, is in the tonic or home key, and the second theme is typically in the dominant or the 5th of the home key. This exposition is typically repeated once, followed by a development section where themes are developed through many different keys and many different iterations, followed by a recapitulation, back to the home key of the tonic, where the first and second themes are both traditionally played in the tonic key. So he began to actually challenge this form from both a structural and a harmonic perspective in this piece. The opening 6-bar maestoso appears just before the first theme and sets the home key of E flat major. However, in the last measure, time is suspended on the subdominant, an A flat major chord in the last bar, which is here. And we don't quite know where that's going to go. That leads us directly into the first part of the exposition. We feel unfinished, we feel uncomfortable, but it wants to lead somewhere, and then eventually, by 8 measures into the first theme, we land back at E flat major, or the tonic. This maestoso appears two more times throughout this movement, as you would expect with the exposition, the development, and the recapitulation, but do not fully conform to the expectations of sonata form. For example, the second maestoso appears where you would expect the repeat of the exposition, but there's no repeat of the exposition. He then takes us directly into the development section, and the recapitulation takes similar unexpected terms. So he clearly in these later years shows a disdain for exact repetition, and in this first movement, his 3 maestosos, in addition to not being repeated exactly harmonically, exactly in length, they're also different in voicing. And so if we look at the voicing, here was what we just heard. The second maestoso, you can see, is much thicker in texture, bigger chords. The string players are going to have to use more of their bow, and it's going to create more sound to generate this. And then when we get to the third maestoso, we're in C major, and it's much more of an open sound than the previous 2. The other unusual thing about this, as this leads us back into the recapitulation, is to go from E flat to C major 6 is unusual. We expect this to either go back to the tonic or at least have some dominant into tonic relationships. So Beethoven is playing with us harmonically from a form perspective and from a texture perspective. What I'd like to do before we hear this whole movement is have the quartet play these 3 maestosos back to back so that you can appreciate those differences. So it's interesting how they sound similar but yet different, and each time our expectations are played with. So in addition to breaking his formal conventions, he also breaks with harmonic conventions of sonata form. Instead of the traditional form where the first theme is in the tonic and the second theme is in the dominant, 1 or 5, which in E flat would be E flat and B flat major, Beethoven actually puts the second theme in G minor, or minor 3, of the home key, which is breaking from convention, not done prior to this. Similarly, in the recapitulation, that first theme is set back in the tonic of E flat major, but the second theme, instead of being set in tonic, is actually in minor 6, C minor. So he moves to minor 6 instead of staying in tonic. So when taken in totality, all of these formal and harmonic deviations from the traditional sonata form leave us, as the listener, surprised, uncomfortable, sometimes anxious, as he gives us material that is far from what we would expect from everything that came before in sonata form. So with that, I will let our Concert Nova musicians play the first movement of Beethoven's Opus 127.
Actually, I was going to do an interactive thing, but we are running a little behind. So, you already know from your doctors what to do if you want to live a long, happy life. And actually, they found attend live concerts really help. So, next time you come to one of our concerts, or go to the CSO, or even go to a pop concert, you are adding extra time to your life. All right. So, this is according to a study recently done by O2, which is a UK live concert event, so it's a little bit biased, but I will present the results anyway. They said just 20 minutes of live music, doesn't really matter what type of live music, can lead to a 21% increase in your well-being and happiness. And then there are other benefits that Todd already mentioned before. It helps language development in kids, helps special temporal skills for radiologists and surgeons. It helps to improve English and math test scores. So I'm sorry it didn't work out for us, but I'm sure with prolonged listening, it may have worked out a little better. So, listening to music is a lot of fun, and we are going to have, actually, before we listen to the last piece, I just want to show you the scores. Ooh, we are all waiting to find out. Actually, you probably already know if you're the winner, because I think it tells you. All right, so this thing here. Well, thank you so much for participating. Unfortunately, I know some of the technical issues did not work, so our jazz team is leading, I think, weighted scores. Yeah, jazz, classical, heavy metal, and only 3 people joined the country team. Now, we have Dr. Brian Coley, who is the radiologist in chief at Cincinnati Children's Hospital. He's leading the scoreboard. Dr. Coley. Well done, the rest of you. I know Greg is a student, CCM student, and he's number 4 on the scoreboard. So good job, everyone. And we are going to listen to our final piece, which, are you going to talk?
So just a word about our final piece. The final piece is by Charles Ives, his second string quartet, first movement from there. And in a way, ending, what's that? Second movement, thank you. And in a way, this is an excellent piece to end the evening with, because it sort of brings together a lot of the concepts we've talked about. So through the course of the evening, we've talked about the Mozart effect, the effect of music on learning, on spatial processing. We've talked about how a musician's brain functions. We've talked about a singer's anatomy. We've talked about mental illness in music, and Ives was one part. Ives did have mental illness, and that will come out in his music. And we've talked about expectation in your brain and what you feel when you listen. So I think that as you listen to this movement from the Ives, you will hear things that are unexpected. You will hear harmonies that are unusual. You will hear rhythmic structure that doesn't quite fit into our expected norms. And I think I would urge you to use those sort of careful listening skills to really enjoy this last piece by Charles Ives. I'd like to say thank you to all of our Concert Nova musicians. Thank you to Dr. Tu and his wife for support of the concert. Thank you to UC Department of Radiology for supporting the MRIs. Thank you to all of our Nova Pass holders and our donors. And after we end the Ives, we welcome you to join us in the back for a little bit of brain food to make sure that we go out into the night smarter than we came in. So thank you very much. Here's the Ives.